Well, I think we're live, so I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm Jonathan Reichental. I'm here in a chilly but sunny Palo Alto, California, here in Northern California, just a few miles south of San Francisco. It's early in the morning here, so if you're joining me from Europe or other places, good morning, good afternoon, and good night to all of you. I'm going to be spending about 20 minutes with you this morning, sharing some of my views on the future of cities, pretty big and important topic. I've been working in the city context now for about 7 years, working with government and with a real technology focus. That's my background. I've been doing technology and specifically technology innovation now for almost 30 years. Although I can't believe it. I'm also a professor at a number of universities where I talk, lecture on a number of tech topics and business topics, and of course, the future of cities and smart cities and gov tech. So very happy to have this opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts here just briefly this morning. If you have questions as we proceed, go ahead and use the Q&A function in Zoom. And while I won't necessarily address them as we go, I will be clicking on that button at the end of the webinar this morning, and I will try to answer everything if I can. So please do add your questions and your comments too. If you don't, if you disagree with something I said, I'd be very interested in that. You know, this doesn't look unlike my commute this morning. This is a typical urban scene of people commuting to work and from work every day. Having had the opportunity to visit many cities around the world and study this problem, unfortunately, traffic congestion is a global phenomenon, not restricted to Europe or the United States or anywhere, actually. I've seen it on almost every continent and in every major city. And this is the state of transportation in 2018. Right now, the world is about 50% urban and growing rapidly in the urban numbers. We're going from about 3.6 billion humans to, by the mid-century, another 2 billion will join in a city context. That actually equates to about 2 million people per week moving into cities. And they're moving into cities in India, in China, and in Africa. There's some significant urbanization taking place. So if this is the traffic situation right now with about half the population of cities, it doesn't bode well for adding millions and millions and more, and frankly, billions over the next few decades if we don't change the trajectory. Cars have served us well, but I would suggest if you're taking sort of 1 hour to drive 15 miles, the problem is broken. And it's sort of characteristic of the type of major challenges we have in our cities around the world. Transportation is definitely among the top ones, but as you'll see in my presentation, there's a whole lot of other ones that we really need to get our heads wrapped around it. We need to take more bold action because stuff is happening, but we got to take even more bolder action as individuals, as enterprises, as communities, governments. We got to do a lot more than we're doing, and technology is going to have to play a very leading role in the future because we have to have a lot of choices and we have to have a heck of a lot of innovation. Now, cities have been very successful, right? They're actually the most successful thing for bringing the most amount of people out of extreme poverty. In India alone, between 2008 and 2011, about 100 million people moved from extreme poverty into the lower or middle classes of that country, and that's a remarkable achievement on that scale in such a short amount of time. In each of the industrial revolutions, beginning with the first industrial revolution, with the beginning of urbanization, people moved into cities and had economic opportunities and schools and houses and things to do and entertainment, and culture was born in a big way. and democratized in a big way. So cities have really been a big success, but they have come at a price. You know, to run our cities, we have to have these significant power plants, and we have to burn carbon. We have historically, and that creates a lot of exhaust into the atmosphere. Here's just one picture of what that might look like in many areas in the world. And so our air quality has been significantly diminished as a result of our industrialization and urbanization. So we've got challenges right there. The United Nations, the World Health Organization says about 7 billion people die because of air quality each year. That's a real big number. And many of those millions are children. It's a tragedy that needs to be resolved. There's urgency to this. Of course, we love our products and we love our consumables, but all of that also has a byproduct. That byproduct is trash, is rubbish, is stuff we just toss away, and it fills our lakes and our rivers and our oceans. In fact, there's a trash heap the size of France in the middle of the pristine Pacific Ocean. It's made up of plastic. By the way, that plastic is broken down with the motion of the ocean, and it breaks down into little beads. And those beads then are eaten by fish because they don't know. And then humans eat the fish, and the plastic becomes part of us. Is it bonding with our DNA? Is trash actually changing what it means to be human, our genetic blueprint? Possibly. But this is the price. This is the extent of our urbanization and the risks that currently exist. And so that, to me, becomes the reason why we need to do a lot of different things, and we have to think differently about the future. Now let's get a little bit more local. For many of you, when you work with government, this is probably how you think about it, a waiting room with a lot of manual processes. And I validated that this is not an American phenomena. This is seen all over the world. Excuse me. This is not a very efficient process, right? When it's manual like this. First of all, there's tremendous delays. And, you know, nobody wakes up, I don't think, and says, oh, I can't wait to go to a government office to fill out some paperwork and submit it. And then I have to sit down again and be called again and meet someone else and submit more paperwork. Most people don't enjoy that, but they have to do it because that's how government works in so many places in the world. So many industries were like this, but many industries moved forward. They automated, they adopted information technology systems, they digitized. Government needs to catch up. In fact, whilst this is a lot of what government looks like today, this is perhaps how it should look. We should be able to conduct most government interactions through a mobile device or a laptop computer or a desktop computer or a smartwatch, whatever it is that you use. So there's a great opportunity to move from this to this. It's worth billions and billions of dollars to convert all those analog processes to digital processes. And as a person who's worked in the government context for so long, I don't see enough of it. I see so much opportunity that isn't yet being embraced by entrepreneurs and the incumbents and the big tech firms. So we have a great digitization transformation ahead in our cities and our governments all over the world, and it presents a tremendous economic opportunity. Now, one of the reasons I like this work is because it's so diverse and there are so many interesting and tough problems to solve. I mean, if you're in computer science related work today, in a technology role, you're probably there because you love solving problems. And certainly that's why I do it. And so I can't think of a context today that's more complex, more diverse, and has more problems to solve than government and our cities. And you just see in this example here, which is not everything, by the way, this is just some examples of areas that are, in fact, seeing some change. So we have to address things like community health and the reinvention of education how we do waste management. We've talked about that. How we manage public safety in our diverse and complex and enormous cities. Energy and transportation and economics are all areas that need attention, increasing attention. And we have to think completely differently and reinvent how these problems are going to be solved. So what I wanted to do in just the few minutes I have with you this morning is talk about two areas and what's happening in those areas to help inspire the kind of change that's ahead, not just in the two areas I'm going to talk about, but others. For example, I'm going to talk about transportation and energy, but we have to also think about health and buildings and public safety and water and air quality and other things. So let's talk about transportation, because that's where I started my little talk this morning. And I wanted to focus a little deeper on this topic. Transportation is going to change, and it is changing, particularly cars, right? Cars make up such a big part of our urban environment today all over the world. And as you saw in the photograph, in my little description earlier, has tremendous challenges that need a complete re-engineering of how it's delivered and how we think about the possibility of cars in the future. And I want to just share with you this very short acronym called ACES, right? And I'll go through each letter of ACES, A-C-E-S. Well, the A stands for autonomous. Cars will drive themselves, vehicles will drive themselves, drones will drive themselves. You know, we are moving into the autonomous era. In fact, autonomous cars might be the most impactful new technology of the first 50 years of the 21st century. And I hope to convince you of that in a moment. So the first thing is cars will be autonomous. Humans will not drive cars. I know this, I believe this because I've been in them. And here, sitting in the center of Silicon Valley in California, here in Palo Alto, I can see cars without drivers driving around. It's happening. It's going to happen fast. And in many cities already, buses are autonomous. I mean, this isn't something that's ahead of us. This is something that's here now. The C is connected. So all cars will be connected. Most cars coming off the production line today are already connected cars. They're interfacing with the environment. They're pulling in data from a lot of cloud services, things around accidents and weather. And they're producing data and delivering data to the car company and to other subscribers that are relevant. Cars will be connected. E is for electric. And I can't believe that I'm going to see in my lifetime, and all of us pretty much will see in our lifetimes, the beginning of the end of the combustion engine. Who would have thought that, right? And governments around the world are already identifying deadlines for when the last combustion engine car will be sold. You have in Scandinavia in the mid-2030s, in the United Kingdom in about 2040, in India in 2045, and lots of countries are announcing the last dates. And by the way, those dates are not far away. So cars will be electric. Just one consequence of that is cars will be quieter, roads will be quieter, right? In fact, I was intrigued to see some science recently about people experimenting with what should be the noise of a silent electric car. What noise should we artificially put into the car? Because if you have lots of cars moving around very fast and they're silent, well, that could be a danger too, right? What sound would you choose for a electric car, I wonder? And then finally, S is for shared. And the notion of shared is that we may not own cars in the future. There's a lot of good evidence that we're trending towards just paying for cars on demand. We already have embraced the sharing economy of Uber and Lyft and Didi and others. And when they are without a driver, the cost per ride will drop significantly. When they're electric, the cost per ride will drop also. Thus, that owning a car will not make financial sense. And so if there's a child in life today, a little boy or girl who's maybe 1 or 2 years old, that child will probably never have a driver's license. And that child may never buy a car, never have the joy a car showroom and choosing a car. It might seem very alien to them in 18 to 20 years from now. So what does all this mean when cars are autonomous, connected, electric, and shared? Well, it means we probably don't need traffic signals. It probably means that self-driving cars don't actually have to stop at intersections because they can negotiate with each other. It means that we don't need signs, perhaps, and we don't need lanes. And we don't need as many parking spaces, because perhaps maybe self-driving cars don't have to park. They can just drive and charge themselves. And you'll see an example here of a car that charges while it's driving. So that could change the game. What would we do with multi-story parking lots or big parking lots in front of malls and around our neighborhoods? We could convert those. So the promise is really exciting about this happening. And there are many, many, many questions that are raised. There are questions that are raised around ethical choices that the software will have to make that's embedded in these cars. There's choices about and challenges about the transition. How do we go from the world we have today to the world of autonomous vehicles? Not easy to answer these, but we'll find out. I mean, we will work on this together. We're working on it together. And we will work through it. And on the other side will be a world of autonomous vehicles where perhaps it'll be illegal for people to drive cars on main streets. What might we do with that? Well, maybe we can give the streets back to the people. And so I love this picture here that shows Manhattan. This is Times Square. On the left-hand side, you see Times Square just a few years ago, and you can see all the congestion there. You can see the taxis and the buses, and so people have to be careful that they don't get knocked over by a vehicle, and it's probably noisy, and there's a lot of greenhouse gas being emitted by these vehicles, and so the air isn't great. And then we move to the right-hand side, and you see Times Square after it's been pedestrianized, given back to the people. The cars are being rerouted. This was a temporary installation that New York has now made permanent. It's a fantastic success. Now on the right-hand side, people can feel safe. The air is better. People socialize. People watch. We have transformed an important part of the world, an important destination, by taking cars out of the picture, rerouting them, putting them somewhere else. By the way, unintuitively, the traffic improved. Even though the taxi drivers and the bus companies were a little concerned that if you pedestrianize a major artery like this, you would really impact traffic in New York City. Now, the second and last example I wanted to share with you in our urban environment is the transformation of energy. And we are in the early stages of a massive global decarbonization, where we move from being largely a world that produces energy from carbon, things like oil, gas, and coal, to a non-carbon world of wind and solar and thermal. And so here you see a nice picture of a town in Germany where almost everybody is reaping the benefits of that wonderful, unlimited star in the sky that every morning rises and every evening sunsets. And so in this scenario, perhaps there's no energy bill anymore. And that is a game changer, but it's also impactful. What does it mean to power companies, right? I believe from my research that solar will likely be the big winner, but it won't be the only one. It'll just be the biggest. And let's look at some data on that. Well, here's the introduction of new gigawatts of energy over the next 11 years as we head towards 2030. Like oil, gas, and coal isn't going anywhere. It's going to be here for a long time. So even in 2030, we will introduce 64 new gigawatts of power from carbon-based or fossil fuels. But look on the right-hand side and what's happening with clean energy or non-carbon energy. By 2030, we're introducing 279 gigawatts of new energy made up of wind, solar, nuclear, hydro, geothermal, and biomass. And there you can see the yellow solar is by far the most popular of the non-carbon energy solutions. In fact, some of these numbers are already being exceeded. It's quite exciting how fast governments and cities are embracing non-carbon based energy. Just in terms of pure economics, today one unit of solar energy relative to other units of other sourced energy is the lowest cost of energy ever produced by humanity. Here you can see over the course of 40 years, a 250 times price decline. Pretty impressive. So we're at the 30-cent mark now for 1 watt produced for one solar panel. And in fact, unintuitively, the country getting the best price on solar, given that it was born on oil, is the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East. Right? And they're proving that, yes, you can shift from an oil-based economy and thrive by utilizing low-cost, clean, and abundant energy. So as I wrap up here, I just wanted to bring 2 ideas together that I'm pretty excited about. And this is a car that is both electric, but also powered by the sun. And it doesn't have to be plugged in. And this is a car called Lightyear. The first production version of this car, I believe, left the production line this year. Next year, you should be able to buy a Lightyear car. So imagine that. Imagine how game-changing that is. If this becomes autonomous, you have an autonomous, electric, unlimited energy, and probably eventually shared vehicle. That's game-changing. That's thinking differently about every aspect of something very fundamental to our world today. Different energy, different models, different ways of thinking about transportation. That's the kind of mindset we have to have if we're going to create the cities for each of us that are amazing places to live and are great places for our children, clean air, with clean water, with abundant energy, with lots of jobs, lots of opportunity. And we've proven that we can make big changes. Here on the left-hand side is Los Angeles a few decades ago. Every day was covered in smog. And today, largely, while the problem isn't 100% fixed, we've come a long way. Look how clear it is. I was just in Los Angeles this past weekend, and it looked beautiful and crystal clear. We can solve big problems with technological change and with effort and momentum and with the will. We can do it. I'm a very big optimist. So what does the future look like? Well, we're just at the very beginning of this shift, of this urban transformation. And there is plenty of room for entrance. There's plenty of room for new ideas, new organizations, new ideas, new people. In fact, McKinsey projects over the next few decades, it's worth a couple of $1 trillion in economic value. So if you're thinking about a new business or a new marketplace, I would suggest you should think about cities and the massive change that needs to take place. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And I've never said that. But it's important and worthwhile. It's valuable work. And it is work that's important to our very existence. Because underlying all of this is our climate crisis. If you're to believe the scientific consensus, it's our cities that are contributing the most towards greenhouse gas emissions now. And so if we're going to save the planet, we have to do this. If we're going to save civilization, we have to change how we think about our cities and how we innovate around our urban environments. But I think we can do it. I think we can do it. We can do it because it's the right thing to do. We can do it because we can create jobs and tremendous economic opportunity within each of our cities and each of our countries. And so with that, I just wanted to wrap up and say, think about what you can do. What will you do to create the incredible new cities of the future? And so with that, I'd like to thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any questions or comments. Let's have a look. Okay, there isn't. Now, what you can do if you want is to, in Zoom, you should see there either on the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, there's the ability to click on the Q&A button. So click on Q&A and I believe you should be able to type in a question there. If you're watching this as a recording, of course, you can't do anything. But if you're watching it live, you can go ahead and type a question. I'll just wait here another few moments. While I'm waiting for any questions to come in, You can also reach me at my Twitter account, which is at Reichental, at Reichhental, just like there on the right-hand bottom right. Always welcome your comments and questions, and I'd love to engage the global community on the important topic of urban innovation and the future of our cities. And so it looks like I got a Q&A coming in here, which is great. I'll just take this and we will wrap up. So the question is from Gaia Arzillig. Thank you for your question. And the question is, what's the most inspiring solution you've come across that is already commercialized in our cities? Goodness. Thank you. Getting another question here. That's wonderful. Well, let's see. What's the most inspiring solution you've come across that is already commercialized in our cities? What is? Well, I think the movement towards solar is very impressive. The cities that are embracing solar are moving quickly. They're seeing the benefits of that. The country of Costa Rica is having many days now when they are completely energy independent, run by the sun. Even Germany last year had at least one, if not 2 days, when they were completely driven by non-carbon energy. So the cities that are fully embracing decarbonization, building the infrastructure, creating the incentives, I'm really impressed with that work. No doubt there's about 20 other things I could think of that I'll think of when I'm done with this presentation, but that's the one I'd like to leave you with. I'll take the other question here. This is from Ross Brainwave. Some people are skeptical that regulators and countries will fully allow autonomous vehicles. Do you see this as a big obstacle? Look, it's a great question because it's not easy and it won't be evenly distributed. You're going to see some cultures that absolutely embrace this, and then you're going to see some cities and some countries where they'll move slower. My thought, and again, it's entirely personal, is that when one or two societies begin to see, assuming they see some big benefits to autonomous vehicles, others will embrace it too. I think, and given the velocity of the fourth industrial revolution, which is the period we're in right now, if Germany is successful, or France, or country in South America or even Africa embraces autonomous vehicles, others will quickly embrace it. So there'll be a great debate, but I think it'll happen, and it'll be very transformational when we get towards the other side of it. Thank you very much for that great question, and thanks for. Here, let's do one more here, because I think I have 1 minute. How viable is solar for Northern European cities? Are other sources also needed? This is from Andrew Thexton P. Thank you for your question. So here's maybe a revelation. Solar works even in cloudy conditions. People don't realize that. They think you have to have blue sky and blazing sun every day. Look, if you have blue sky, you definitely will have excellent solar. If you have cloud, it'll be filtered a little bit, and it won't be quite as intense. But solar does work in cloudy conditions. And the second part of your question is, are other sources also available or needed? I mean, I think it is going to be a mix. I think solar dominates, but I do think we'll see wind for sure, and thermal. We'll see what happens with nuclear. That's, I think, a bigger societal debate. But I don't imagine we'll just see one type of energy in the future. I think we'll see a blend with some dominating and some being lesser. We may even see carbon in place for quite a while. Very nice questions. Thank you. Ross says that he's in Scotland and he's happy to hear that solar works in cloudy conditions. That's well, good. I'm glad that's a bit of good news for you. I think with that we'll conclude. I'll turn this back to the Proptech guys, and thank you so very much for your attention this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Reichental, for this very interesting presentation. And thank you all the attendees for joining. And yeah, I hope you join for some more sessions, and have a nice Friday. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.